Britain's towns are in trouble. Real trouble. While London grows stronger and cities like Manchester boom, many smaller towns across the UK face a fight for their very survival. The numbers tell a scary story. Since 2010, people across Britain are on average 10,200 worse off than they should be. But in some towns, it's much worse. Today we're looking at 7 towns that might not make it to 2029 in any meaningful way. These aren't just places with problems, these are communities hanging by a thread. We'll also look at 2 towns that show us what hope looks like. The warning signs are everywhere. Empty shops line high streets. Young people leave and never come back. Businesses close faster than they open. Local councils run out of money. Health gets worse, crime goes up. It's like watching a slow-motion disaster, but this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real places where real families live, where children grow up, where elderly people have spent their whole lives. Every empty building represents dreams that didn't come true. Every closed shop means someone lost their livelihood. The question isn't whether change is coming, change is already here. The question is whether these towns can adapt fast enough to survive. Let's start with 2 places that show us just how bad things can get. Blackpool. The faded jewel. Once upon a time, Blackpool was called one of the wonders of the world. In the 1930s, this seaside town in Lancashire drew millions of visitors every year. Families came from across the north of England and Scotland to enjoy the pleasure beach, the famous piers, and the world-famous illuminations. Today, Blackpool tells a very different story. The town has 141,000 people crammed into a very small area. It's the 7th most crowded place in England, outside of London. But being crowded doesn't mean being successful. Blackpool faces some of the worst problems in Britain. It has the highest rate of children in care in England, 218 per 10,000 children, which is 3 times the national average. It also has the highest rate of deaths from drug misuse in the entire country. The economy tells an even grimmer story. In 2020, Blackpool's gross value added was £5.2 billion, placing it 53rd out of 63 major UK cities and towns. For productivity per hour, it ranked. The town has the lowest median income in Lancashire, at just £245,571. What went wrong? Several things happened all at once, like a perfect storm of bad luck and bad timing. First, people stopped taking holidays in Britain. Cheap flights to Spain and other warm countries meant families could get guaranteed sunshine for less money than a rainy week in Blackpool. The town's main industry, tourism, collapsed. Second, the buildings that once housed happy holidaymakers became a problem. Old guest houses were converted into houses in multiple occupation, often bringing problems like drug and alcohol use. The town centre filled with poor quality housing that attracted people with serious problems. Third, transport connections got worse instead of better. Continued underinvestment in railway infrastructure by the government made travel to Manchester and Liverpool difficult, resulting in fewer job opportunities for local residents. Fourth, the money dried up. Between 2010 and 2017, core funding for Blackpool Council had the highest reduction out of any local authority in England. Less money meant fewer services. Can Blackpool survive until 20? It has secured £5 million from the National Institute of Health and Care Research and launched a new community research team where local residents are employed and trained to tackle inequalities. But the problems run so deep that £5 million feels like trying to fix a sinking ship with a bucket. The town needs massive investment, new industries, and most importantly, hope. Without dramatic change, Blackpool in 2029 might be unrecognizable from the place that once called itself a wonder of the world. Hartlepool, the forgotten port. Hartlepool sits on the North Sea coast in County Durham. It's a town that time seems to have forgotten. With around 92,300 people, it's small enough that everyone should matter. But looking at the numbers, it's hard to see how this town survives the next 5 years. The economic picture is bleak. Around 16,800 people, or 29.7% of the population aged 16 to 64 years in Hartlepool, were economically inactive. In the year ending December 20, nearly 3 in 10 working-age adults aren't working, and aren't looking for work. That's not unemployment, that's people who have given up entirely. House prices in Hartlepool are still 19.5% down from where they were 10 years ago, with average prices struggling to reach 100. When people can't sell their homes, they can't move away, they're trapped. Like many northern towns, Hartlepool built its identity around industries that no longer exist. The shipyards are quiet, the docks handle a fraction of what they once did. The chemical plants that provided good jobs for generations are shadows of their former selves. What's left? Not much. The town struggles to attract new businesses because there's not much to attract them. The workforce has skills for industries that have moved abroad or been automated away. Young people leave for Newcastle or further south, and they don't come back. Between 2011 and 2021, Hartlepool's population increased by just 0.3%, much lower than the 6.6% increase across England as a whole. The town is essentially standing still while the rest of the country moves forward. Perhaps most concerning, the number of people aged 65 to 74 years rose by 26.4%, while the number of residents between 35 and 49 years fell by 16.5%. The town is aging rapidly as working-age people leave and retirees stay behind. Hartlepool isn't just economically struggling, it's spiritually struggling. The sense of community and pride that once held it together is fraying. Without jobs, without young people, without hope, what's left? By 2029, Hartlepool might still exist on the map. There will still be houses and streets and a few shops. But will it be a real community? Or just a collection of buildings where some people happen to live? The clock is ticking for Hartlepool, and right now, time is not on its side. Burnley, the mill town that time forgot. Burnley sits in the Pennine Hills of Lancashire, like a town stuck in amber. It's like a big village nestling in gentle hills, but it's the weakest and most isolated of the former textile mill town economies. The numbers tell the story of a place in deep trouble. Men born in Burnley die 4 years earlier than the national average, and 21% of adults claim a key benefit. When a fifth of all adults need government help just to survive, you know the local economy has failed. Burnley was built for an industry that no longer exists. For over a century this was cotton country. The mills employed thousands. They were the beating heart of the town. When cheap textiles from Asia killed the British cotton industry, they ripped the heart out of Burnley. What replaced those mill jobs? Nothing, really. Some service jobs here and there, a bit of retail, but nothing that paid as well or employed as many people as the mills once did. Burnley is forecast to have among the lowest growth rates of any locality in the UK, along with places like Blaenau Gwent in Wales and Torbay in the southwest. When experts look at the future, they don't see growth. They see continued decline. Young people in Burnley grow up seeing a place with no jobs, no opportunities, and no future. They leave for Manchester, London, anywhere but home. This brain drain makes recovery almost impossible. How do you build new industries when all your educated young people have left? The town centre tells the story. Empty shops, discount stores, and charity shops dominate what was once a thriving commercial district. When your high street is full of pound shops and bookmakers, you know the local economy is in trouble. By 2029, Burnley might have even fewer people, fewer jobs, and fewer reasons for hope. Unless something dramatic changes, this proud mill town will continue its slow fade into irrelevance. Stoke-on-Trent. The broken pottery. Stoke-on-Trent was once the pottery capital of the world. Names like Wedgwood, Spode, and Royal Dilton made this city famous across the globe. The Potteries, as the area was known, employed tens of thousands of skilled workers who created beautiful ceramics shipped worldwide. Today, Stoke-on-Trent tells a story of industrial decline and social breakdown. The claimant count in Stoke-on-Trent was 9,825 in March 2024, up from 8,900 the previous year. The proportion of working-age people claiming unemployment-related benefits rose from 5. More people are struggling to find work, not fewer. Around 34,500 people, or 21.9% of the working-age population, were economically inactive in 20. More than 1 in 5 working-age adults have given up looking for work entirely. Like other former industrial cities, Stoke-on-Trent lost its main industry to foreign competition. Cheap pottery from China and other countries undercut local producers. The great pottery firms either closed or moved production overseas. The skilled jobs that supported entire families disappeared. What's left is a city struggling to find a new identity. Some pottery production remains, but it employs a fraction of the workforce it once did. The city has tried to reinvent itself around logistics and distribution, taking advantage of its central location in England. But these jobs often pay less and require different skills than the pottery work that defined the city for generations. The city's 6 towns, Harnley, Burslem, Tunstall, Longton, Fenton and Stoke, each face their own struggle. What was once a federation of thriving pottery towns now looks more like a collection of declining urban areas, searching for purpose. Young people leave Stoke-on-Trent for opportunities elsewhere. Without them, the city struggles to attract new businesses or develop new industry. It's caught in a cycle where lack of opportunity drives away the people who might create opportunity. By 2029, Stoke-on-Trent might still exist as a city, but it risks becoming a shadow of what it once was, a place where people live because they can't afford to leave, rather than because they choose to stay. Oldham, the mill town that can't move on. Oldham, in Greater Manchester, should have advantages that other struggling towns lack. It's close to Manchester, one of England's most successful cities. It has good transport links via the M60 motorway. In theory, it should benefit from Manchester's economic success. In practice, Oldham shows how proximity to success doesn't guarantee success. Despite being part of Greater Manchester, Oldham has the lowest median income in the county at being next door to prosperity doesn't mean sharing in it. Oldham suffers some of the worst rates of unemployment in the northwest, and 26.1% of the workforce is economically inactive. More than a quarter of working-age adults aren't working and aren't looking for work. Like Burnley, Oldham was built around the cotton industry. The mills that once employed thousands are now mostly demolished or converted to other uses. The town has tried to replace those jobs with public sector work and some private sector development, but it hasn't been enough. House prices in Oldham only just escaped a lost decade of their own, recovering to finish just 1,165 alb higher than they were 10 years ago. When property values barely move for a decade, it signals an economy going nowhere. Oldham's location near Manchester should be an asset, but instead, it often feels like being in the shadow of a successful neighbour. People might live in Oldham because it's cheaper than Manchester, but they work, shop, and socialize elsewhere. The town becomes a dormitory rather than a community. By 2029, Oldham risks becoming even more marginalized. As Manchester continues to grow and prosper, the contrast with its struggling neighbor becomes more stark. Unless Oldham can find a way to benefit from Manchester's success rather than being overshadowed by it, the town's decline will continue. Middlesbrough, the chemical coast in crisis. Middlesbrough, in the northeast of England, was built on heavy industry. Steel, chemicals, and manufacturing made this a powerhouse of British industrial might. The town's skyline was once dominated by smoking chimneys and busy factories. Today, much of that industry is gone, and what remains often feels like it's living on borrowed time. People in Middlesbrough experienced an average shortfall of £13,200 per head in disposable income compared to what they would have had if pre-2010 economic trends had continued. The economic stagnation since 2010 has hit this town particularly hard. But Middlesbrough's problems go beyond just economics. The town sits in an area heavily affected by industrial pollution. Decades of chemical production have left environmental scars that make regeneration difficult. Who wants to build new housing or start new businesses on land that might be contaminated? The town also struggles with health problems that reflect both its industrial past and its economic present. Years of exposure to industrial pollution, combined with poverty and unemployment, have created health challenges that burden the entire community. In 2024, Middlesbrough experienced riots where the organizer of a march was arrested on suspicion of possessing a firearm with intent to cause fear of violence. The social tensions that lead to such events don't appear overnight. They build up over years of economic decline and social neglect. The town has tried to reinvent itself. There have been efforts to develop new industries, attract investment, and clean up the environment, but these efforts are racing against time and decay. Every year that passes without significant improvement makes recovery harder. Middlesbrough also faces the particular challenge of being a relatively small place trying to compete with larger cities for investment and attention. Companies looking to locate in the northeast are more likely to choose Newcastle, which has a larger workforce and better connection. By 2029, Middlesbrough might face a stark choice: accept managed decline and focus on making life bearable for those who remain, or make one last push for transformation. The window for the second option is closing fast. Sunderland, the shipyard without ships. Our final town in crisis is Sunderland, once one of the world's great shipbuilding centres. For generations the River Wear echoed with the sound of hammers and rivets, as workers built ships that sailed to every corner of the globe. The last commercial shipyard closed in 1988. Since then, Sunderland has been searching for a new identity and a new economic foundation. That search is still ongoing. 35 years later, people in Sunderland experienced an average shortfall of £12,730 per head in disposable income compared to what they would have had if pre-2010 economic trends had continued. Like other northern towns, economic stagnation has left people poorer than they should be. In 2024, Sunderland experienced some of the most severe rioting in England, where protesters gathered in Keele Square and a citizens' advice bureau was set on fire. The violence reflected deep-seated frustrations about the town's direction and prospects. Sunderland has tried various strategies to replace the shipbuilding industry. The city became a centre for car manufacturing when Nissan opened a major plant there in the 1980s. For a while, this seemed like the answer: high-tech manufacturing providing good jobs for local people. But even this success story faces uncertainty. The car industry is changing rapidly, with electric vehicles requiring different skills and supply chains. Brexit has also raised questions about the long-term viability of car manufacturing in Britain for export to Europe. The town centre tells a familiar story of retail decline. Like many places, Sunderland's high street struggles to compete with online shopping and out-of-town retail parks. Empty shops and charity stores dominate what was once a bustling commercial district. By 2029, Sunderland might still be searching for its post-industrial identity. The danger is that the search takes so long that the city loses the critical mass of people and businesses needed for any kind of renaissance. After looking at 7 towns in serious trouble, it might seem like decline is inevitable, that nothing can stop the forces tearing apart Britain's smaller communities. But that's not the whole story. Some towns are fighting back successfully. They're finding new ways to thrive in a changing economy. They're proving that with the right leadership, the right strategy, and a bit of luck, even struggling places can turn things around. Let's look at 2 towns that show us what hope looks like. Plymouth, the port city that refused to sink. Plymouth has every reason to be on our list of failing towns. It's a port city that lost much of its naval importance. It was heavily bombed during World War II. For decades after the war, it struggled with the same problems as many other coastal communities. But Plymouth is different. Instead of accepting decline, the city has fought back with remarkable determination and success. Plymouth is now among the highest performing cities in the UK, scoring above the UK average for health and safety and skills. This isn't luck, it's the result of sustained effort and smart planning. The city has built its revival around several key strengths. First, it recognized that its maritime heritage was an asset, not a burden. Plymouth has particular strengths in the blue or marine sectors, with many strong businesses within this sector at the forefront of economic development. Second, Plymouth invested heavily in education and skills. The University of Plymouth has become a major employer and source of innovation. The city has worked hard to keep graduates in the area, instead of losing them to London or other cities. Third, Plymouth has embraced new technologies and industry. The city is establishing Devonport as a creative cluster, supporting floating offshore wind developments, and growing the tech sector. Instead of mourning lost industries, Plymouth is building new ones. The numbers show the transformation is working. The city aims to increase productivity from £44,930 to £55,000 per filled job and grow the value of Plymouth economy by £1 billion over. These aren't just wishful thinking. They're backed by concrete plans and real investment. Plymouth's approach to the COVID-19 pandemic showed the city's resilience and ambition. The city launched Resurgam, Latin for I Shall Rise Again, a comprehensive economic recovery program. The name came from a sign placed over bombed-out St Andrew's Church during the Blitz. The symbolism was deliberate. Plymouth has survived worse than this. During the pandemic, Plymouth's business team worked directly with 3,800 businesses and helped get over £37 million in grants to local companies. The city didn't just wait for help from London, it took action itself. What makes Plymouth special isn't that it avoided problems. The city still faces challenges. Around 35% of working-age people are economically inactive due to long-term sickness, and too many people find it difficult to access work and educational opportunities. But Plymouth is tackling these problems head-on. The city aims to reduce the number of residents with no formal qualifications from 10.7%, lift at least 3,000 people out of poverty, and help 5,000 people get work. Plymouth works because it has a clear vision of what it wants to be, a modern maritime city that combines its historic strengths with new opportunities. It has leadership that thinks long-term and takes action, and it has a population that believes in the city's future. By 2029, Plymouth is likely to be even stronger than it is today. The city has shown that coastal communities don't have to decline, they can adapt, grow and prosper if they're willing to change, while staying true to their core strengths. Cambridge, the city that never stopped growing. Cambridge is our second success story, but it's successful in a very different way from Plymouth. While Plymouth had to reinvent itself, Cambridge built on existing advantages to become one of Europe's most important technology centers. Cambridge suffered during the 2020 recession, like everywhere else, but it recovered very strongly and by the end of 2021 was expected to be in the top 10 for economic growth and in first place for job creation. What makes Cambridge special starts with the university. Cambridge University has been a centre of learning and research for over 800 years. But the city has done something remarkable. It's turned academic excellence into economic success. The transformation began in the 1980s and 1990s when Cambridge started encouraging university research to spin out into commercial companies. Instead of keeping scientific discoveries locked away in academic journals, Cambridge helped turn them into businesses that create jobs and attract investment. Cambridge has strong private sectors, high levels of entrepreneurship, a highly educated workforce, and large shares of knowledge-intensive jobs. This combination makes it attractive to companies looking for innovation and talent. The results speak for themselves. Cambridge is now home to thousands of technology companies, from tiny startups to major international corporations. The city has become synonymous with cutting-edge research in everything from computing to biotechnology to clean energy. Reading is projected to overtake Manchester as the UK's fastest-growing location, with predicted annual growth of 2.5% between 2024 and 2027, benefiting from expansion in big technology. But Cambridge isn't far behind, consistently ranking among the top performers for economic growth. What's particularly impressive about Cambridge is how it's managed to grow without losing its character. The city centre still looks like a historic university town, with beautiful colleges and medieval streets. But hidden away in business parks and converted buildings, some of the world's most advanced companies are working on tomorrow's technologies. Cambridge also shows how success can create new challenges. Housing became less affordable with the steepest rises in housing costs in places like Cambridge that already had high housing costs. Success has made the city expensive, pricing out many workers and creating social tensions. But Cambridge is working on these problems too. The city is expanding its housing supply and improving transport connections to surrounding areas. It's trying to ensure that economic success benefits everyone, not just the highest earners. The key lesson from Cambridge is that universities can be engines of economic growth if they're properly connected to the commercial world. Cities with universities have an asset that many other places lack: a constant supply of new ideas, new graduates, and new energy. Cambridge also benefits from being close to London. Many companies choose Cambridge because they can access London's financial markets and international connections while enjoying lower costs and a better quality of life. By 2029, Cambridge will likely be even more successful than it is today. The city has built a self-reinforcing cycle of success. Good companies attract talented people start new companies attract investment, and investment funds further growth. The towns that are failing share common problems. they lost their main industries, they couldn't replace them, young people left, investment dried up, and decline became self-reinforcing. The towns that are succeeding made different choices. They built on their strengths, invested in their people, embraced change, and created reasons for optimism. But here's the crucial point: it's not too late for the struggling towns. Decline isn't inevitable. With the right leadership, the right investment, and the right strategy, even the most troubled communities can turn things around. The question is whether there's time. By 2029, some of these towns might have passed the point of no return. Others might surprise us with their resilience and determination. The future of British towns and cities isn't written yet, but it's being written now in the decisions being made in council chambers, boardrooms, and family kitchens across the country. Time will tell which towns choose to fight and which choose to fade away. The clock is ticking, but the race isn't over yet.